Now, it is that family idea that we celebrate tonight, that incredible sense of community in this business. It's really what sets footwear apart from all the other industries. And we celebrate that in these, our opening moments. The next couple of days will be all about business, but tonight we're going to look at the business of giving back, something that this generous industry has always excelled at. Just look at Ron Fromm. Look at the amazing work of 210, and you have an idea, mirrored by many of you in this room, that generosity is a huge part of the DNA of the footwear business. So yes, tonight is all about giving back, and even in an industry of incredible givers, Kenneth Cole stands apart. His life and career have blended together to support cause in a very profound way. He doesn't just lead the conversation tonight, he actually defines it. Please take a look.
There's more to life than making shoes. I think that I've done a lot, but I know I can do a lot more.
I don't know how Kenneth Cole finds the time to design anything anymore, because he seems to be always in some far-flung corner of the world working for Amphar. He's everywhere.
I joined the board of Amphar over 25 years ago, hoping and dreaming that one day we would be where we are today.
He was the first designer to publicly come out with a message concerning AIDS.
There was this pervasive consciousness in the United States. How do you talk about this? How do you make talking about AIDS easy? We'll create this message, and hopefully it'll be the most read and most seen AIDS message in the history of the disease. Amphar has made significant progress in every area, all made possible by the generous support of our guests here at this event and other events.
Kenneth Cole and his team have been involved since the beginning, and the work they do is just phenomenal.
One of the most generous people I have ever met in every way. Ladies and gentlemen, Amphar's chairman, Kenneth Cole.
What he's trying to do this time is get to some 1,800 AIDS organizations that exist in this country in order to fight a disease that's still on the rampage.
AIDS is still the greatest public health threat of our time. Amphar resources have funded 4 of the 6 classes of drugs that treat people living with the virus.
It used to not be spoken about. You didn't talk about AIDS.
No, there was stigma that was devastating earlier on. My job will be done when we have a cure and it's accessible to all those that need it on their terms.
The only conclusion I can come to is that he has cloned himself. He has used some of the money that he's raised for Amphar research and used it to clone himself. So to all the Kens, bravo, I say. And also, there must be a special Ken who just does bad puns. That's a full-time job.
We am far from where we were, but we are close to where we want to be, and we are going to find a cure much sooner than any of us would have believed possible not that long ago.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ron. Those were very generous words. It really is a privilege to be here tonight. I wasn't sure what thoughts and or words to impose upon you, but I thought maybe that I will share with you the impetus of what has brought me to where I am and why I do what I do, and many here do a lot, and I was speaking last week at the 210 gathering on City Hall, and I made a statement which is profoundly accurate. I believe that the 210 model is a community-based model that if every industry in this country replicated, our communities would be so much healthier, and we'd be so much further along than we are right now. So I'm privileged to be able to do what I do. This is an extraordinary industry. I feel like I was born in this business. My business is 30 years old. I started when I was 11. And
the business has become more than a shoe business, but deep at the bottom of it all, I feel like it all started there and it ends there. So, or it doesn't end there, but it's all about that. The shoe business has been an extraordinary platform for me to do so much of what I do. And it's interesting because I think about it often. And everything that we wear affects how we look, but shoes specifically also affect how we feel. And I think deep down, there is something in that, because when people make that critical decision in the morning, what they're going to wear, which is going to have a profound impact on their day and their experience, because I do believe how you look ultimately, if you think you look good, invariably you will. It becomes self-fulfilling because you're going to smile, you're going to relax. If you think you look bad, you might just as well lie down in front of the next truck because... but I think so much of it really emanates from below the ankles. And it's an extraordinary platform. And I do think that if people look good, I do think they in fact will feel good. And but by the same token, and we discuss that often internally, that I do believe if every shoe store in America closed its doors tomorrow at 12 o'clock, hardly an American would go barefoot for 10 plus years. Hardly anybody needs shoes. Our job is to make them think they do, make them glad they thought it, and think it again. But the reality is shoes make you feel good, and people have this compulsive relationship to what it is and what it is they walk in. I actually did a random tweet. I'm becoming obsessed with this social media stuff. And the question was, and I asked the question, if a woman is in the forest and there's nowhere to go, does she still need a new pair of shoes? And the answer was unanimously yes. So you guys can find comfort in that in case you were concerned. So then I've wondered years ago, because if we all work really hard to be successful in this business, there's no business that's harder, I can tell you that, but then there's no business that's more engaging and more overwhelming. And at the same time, maybe more fulfilling than the shoe business. But at the end of the day, you give so much of yourself, and you go home at the end of the day and say, I made so many compromises in order to do what I'm doing, why? And then you ask your associates to do the same, and then you say why. It needs to be somehow more than just about how much money we're making. And I struggled with that. And also, as good a salesman as we may be, if somebody wakes up in the morning and they're not well and they can't put food on the table for their family, what you wear is very unimportant. But so I struggled with, early on in the 80s, how do I make what I'm doing important? How do I make it bigger than what it is in the ordinary course? How do I connect to a woman at the time, and guys, to not just what they stood in, but what they stood for, not just what they wore, but of what they were aware? How do I speak to them, not just what they were wearing, but who was wearing what they were wearing? So that was kind of a journey that I set out upon in the early 80s, and I wanted to connect myself to something and use resources that I had, and at the time nobody was speaking about AIDS, so that's what I did. And you couldn't speak about AIDS in the 80s because stigma was so devastating. And if you did, that meant you were presumed to be at risk, which meant you were either an IV drug user, you were Haitian, or you were gay. Now, I was a single male designer, so I knew everybody would just assume that I was Haitian. But I also recognized an opportunity to say something that few were at a time when few would. And I have to tell you, it changed me in such profound ways. It changed me, the individual, changed the designer, changed the brand, and changed the company, changed the culture of the company. And I found so much gratification, and everything that I was doing all of a sudden felt more important than it had up until that point. And I joined the board, and I was astounded on how much impact was available to be made, because and it's everywhere in our communities, there's opportunities to get involved. And we all have resources available to us to bring to the occasion, should we look inside and should we so choose. I was a public company for a long time. A few people asked me tonight if I miss not being a public company. And then I laugh, and I tell them I've never felt better in my life, ever, now that I'm not. But I was often asked the question, as to the appropriateness of using a public company and or a business with its various stakeholders and various agendas, the appropriateness of using those resources and investing them in non-core initiatives. And in fact, the bigger question is, are business and community independent from each other, or shouldn't they be? Are they in fact related, or should they in fact be otherwise? And my answer was always, and I believe, not only are they not independent, but I believe they're interdependent and they're interrelated, and they are the proverbial hand that feeds each other. And I do also believe that every corporation will find their way there because they'll recognize the need to be there. Hopefully their hearts will get them there before their balance sheet. But I do believe that that will be the case. So about 15 years ago, I had certain associates in the company that came to me and they said, it's great, Ken, that you do what you do, but we struggle, and that's why many of us are here, because we love what the brand stands for and we love what you do, but we struggle with the fact that you don't make those opportunities available to us as an organization. So I said, I didn't feel I had the right to do that, and I didn't feel it was my place to impose my personal passions and outside commitments upon you here. And then it became apparent I had an obligation to at least make it available. So we set up internally a community outreach initiative within the company. And we in fact make a very concerted effort to make these opportunities available to all the associates. And I also make it very clear that I don't ever want to know who goes. No attendance should be taken. If you're going to do this because you want to do it, you're not going to get any points, you're not going to get a raise. And you're going to realize if you do it, and I believe, that the individual will be the biggest beneficiary. The one who volunteers, the one who offers his time. I've come to learn, we did a book 5 years ago called Awareness, interviewed 92 change agents, and individuals who have inspired me and have made very meaningful contributions to the community, and each one of them were asked 2 questions. If you could do anything over again, what would it be? And they all said, I would have done more and I would have started sooner. And the other question that they all, when asked, was what was your greatest learning? And invariably it was that they individually were the greatest beneficiary of the work that they did, and that was unanimous. So 5 years ago we started the Awareness Initiative, which has 4 pillars, which we tried to envelop all of the company's outside engagements and efforts. And one is civil liberties. One is HIV, and you've heard a little bit of the story about my work with AMFAR, and the company has seized moments to use its resources. We do all AMFAR's marketing, branding internally, and I do a lot more as well. And the other one's civil liberties, another one's freedom of expression, and the third one is disaster relief. And we have these initiatives in our stores, and we opened the Kenneth Cole Health Center in City Soleil, just outside of Port-au-Prince in Haiti, about a year and a half after the earthquake, which provides public health, basic public health education, testing, and treatment to all the residents. And it's affiliated with St. Mary's. It's a public hospital. It's available to everybody. So I say, I'm going to wrap this up quickly, but I say that if you look good, I do believe you feel good, but in fact, if you look good and you do good, I believe you'll feel even better. And in closing, I'm going to tell you one anecdote, and then I'm going to turn this back to our fearless leader. And it's a story that I love to tell of an old shoe guy that's driving down the street one night, and he gets a call from his wife, and she says, honey, you've got to get home quickly. I just heard that there's a lunatic on the same road you're on driving in the wrong direction. And he paused because he didn't want to unsettle her, and he says, sweetheart, it's worse than that. There are hundreds of them. So I feel this industry has allowed me to kind of go in the direction I have, and somehow, and I've learned that going against traffic is not necessarily going in the wrong direction. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for allowing me to do what I do, and I'll turn this over to our fearless force, Michael Atmore, who has brought us all here, and I will submit myself to interrogation and otherwise.
Tell them to join me. So I feel like our first act of generosity should be to allow everyone to have a bite of their salad. Please have a bite of your salad.
Or all three courses.
Yes. So Kenneth, talk just a tiny bit about this public versus private part and how that fits into the cause-related strategy of the company or your own personal passion there. Does it make it easier? And if so, how?
So I think in many ways, to the ability you can engage your customer, the relationship becomes so much more meaningful. And I think to the degree you can speak to them about, again, who they are as opposed to who they are on the inside as opposed to what they look like on the outside, that impression is so much more powerful than an individual collection of footwear or handbags. And I think it'll survive any given season. And they're inclined to appreciate you more for it. But that's part of what got me there 25 years ago, but it's not what's kept me there. It's just been a very gratifying and very fulfilling journey. And I continue to look to do what I can.
So who was your mentor? I mean, who convinced you to take up this path? Were there people along the way that you looked to and said that I want to follow that?
I've been very privileged. I mean, this video you saw was not made by us. This was made for an Amphar dinner, which recently. I've had experience and exposure. I've had exposure and access to some extraordinary individuals over the years who have inspired me in ways I never could have imagined possible. And you realize people who with so much and have just set out and can't and are committed to give all that they can to the degree that they can whenever they can. So. My family is all committed and inspired and like-minded in this regard, and so that also makes it makes it
But was
possible.
it part of your father's sort of legacy, or was this something that came to you as your career developed?
A lot of it came as my career developed, and also when I married Maria. A few years later, her father was the governor, and he was kind of very articulate on a lot of these social issues as well. But I've had so many wonderful
mentors.
And
so your own children, are they involved? I mean, are they?
They're on their own paths, and we'll see where they go. My oldest one is very intent on being the voice of the voiceless and serving the underserved, and hopefully she'll stay naive and she'll stay on that course, but she's in law school right now, so we'll see.
So how do you measure success in this life, in the cause-related area of your life? Do you use the same measures of success that you do on the brand side or the company side?
It's a term I struggle with business-wise, because to the degree you sit back and you find complacency in what it is you've accomplished, it's very hard to stay focused on what you still need to do. So I think what I've done professionally and also personally to a large degree is we've built this foundation from which we can now really do great stuff and really impact people in meaningful ways that we couldn't have before. So I think that probably is what I think I'm most proud of.
Are there moments, like this year was a big year, I was with you on a couple big nights this year, the documentary at the Tribeca Film Festival, the AmFAR dinner. Is this year a bigger year than most?
See, one of the things that I have always sought to do, we all work hard. You guys probably work as hard or harder than I do, but you come to realize that to be successful at work, you make compromises, and often that means that those are personal, and you go home and the personal life isn't what you wish it were because you're not there, you're there. And then sometimes you get the personal working and then the professional isn't quite working. And then if you want to get involved in the community, then it's another thing. What I've been lucky to do is to marry those, so to the degree that we can. And so we just did a film. The company is called Kenneth Productions. You guys may know of a story, how we started the business in a trailer 30 years ago, and we pretended to be a film company. So we have been a pretend production company for 30 years. But I just produced a film, which is about a year and a half in the making, about the two founders of AmFAR, Dr. Mathilde Krim, a Swiss scientist, and Elizabeth Taylor, a Hollywood legend, and how the two of them came together and created something that was so extraordinary. So, but again, it was using my resources. I'm also on the board of Sundance, and I think documentary storytelling today is a powerful platform today to communicate with large audiences and tell meaningful stories. So I used all of my resources to bring this one project to life, and it opened in Sundance, and it's called The Battle of AmFAR in January, and it premiered in Tribeca last week, and it's going to be, and HBO bought the rights to it, and it's going to air on World AIDS Day on December 1st.
It's a great documentary. Do you ever have the temptation to just quit the brand or business side of life and devote yourself to the more cause-related life?
You know, I'm a little bit immersing myself a little bit more back into the shoe business now, into the business of the business, and I'm loving it. And there's nothing like this industry. It totally takes everything you've got to offer and more. So, and I reflect back at how much it's changed over the last 30 years, and it has, but I also, at the same time, always contemplating how much it hasn't changed and how some things have stayed the same. But it's totally invigorating, and just when you think you figured it out, you got to start all over again. So I was talking to somebody before who was saying, I think it was Ron, who was saying how some banking friends had said, so now you redo your wares, redo 85% of your offerings 4 times a year, and you start all over again. Are you insane? But this is a tough business, but it's a great business.
So the charity work is like a vacation.
I love the charity work. I love it. It's very focused right now on certain projects, and AmFAR, as you heard, supported the initial funding for 4 of the 6 drugs today that keep millions of people alive today. And today, people everywhere can protect themselves from contracting HIV, men and women, gay and straight, pregnant women, unborn children. This is all new. And with AmFAR-funded research, the first 2 people were actually cured of the virus. A child in Mississippi, you may have heard about a couple weeks ago, and a gentleman in Berlin about a couple years ago.
Which leads me to, what is the end game? Like, do you have a goal for AmFAR and your role at AmFAR?
It's
and these other causes.
It's to find a cure and to, I mean, it's, when they had originally asked me to do this, when Dr. Krim stepped down, she'd been chairman about 8 years ago, she said she's only going to do it if I agreed to do it. And I said, I don't know anything. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about this business. But the reality is everything is about creative thinking and looking at interesting ways and new, innovative ways of putting resources together and coming up with a different result. And that's what's happened. And there's been huge breakthroughs in science right now. And one of the big AmFAR breakthroughs that a lot of this is happening from this, we set up an initiative called a consortium, ARCH. It's an AIDS consortium where we give these large grants to researchers, scientists under the condition that they agree to share their findings, which is totally unheard of in that world. And because everything's proprietary, and ultimately everybody's trying to ultimately invest all their resources and create that big reward at the end. But by doing this, it totally accelerated all the work. There was no redundant efforts being done anymore, and I think it led to a lot of the results that we've recently
How do you have the bandwidth to do all this, though? I mean, you're running a company, and then you're heavily involved in these other charities. Like
drugs.
Okay, what are they?
You know, it's just, I just love doing it, son. I love that I have the opportunity to do it. So.
But is there a sacrifice? Is something go by the wayside?
Yeah, we're always making sacrifices, and we make those choices. I mean, every day I tell this to my kids, I have a to-do list, and if I'm lucky, I get through half of it. And we're prioritizing every day that which we hope to accomplish, and invariably we do that which we need to accomplish, and then one day we get to that which we hope to get done.
And you have a partner, Maria, who's very involved in her own stuff, so she, I would imagine, understands quite a bit of this journey, right?
She does.
What are some huge frustrations that have occurred along this path? Let's even take the Amphar example. There must have been frustrating moments along this road.
Well, you know, I guess there's the political, social obstacles that you encounter along the way. And everybody invariably has agendas, and things are often politicized. And I also, people have asked me if I thought it was appropriate as a public company to be talking about some of the things that we're talking about, letting alone feeling about the doing, but just the speaking about. Was it appropriate to speak about things that are political? And I said, my answer would always be nothing, almost nothing that I talk about is political. These are all social issues and human issues. They're not political. So nobody should have a problem with these. And so the goal is to try to create non-partisan.
Nobody should have a problem, but the fact is so few people take them on that it puts you in this other class that makes you look like you are taking them on. So has that ever been frustrating for you? Have you ever had moments where you felt, well, I went too far, or other people have said, oh, I've gone too far, or is it the opposite?
You know, sometimes you go too far, but you need to, I mean, as a merchant, I'll use a footwear metaphor, you don't know how much you can sell until you have too much inventory. And only then will you know what your maximum opportunities were. So you expend what you have, and the next time you'll realize maybe you spent more than you needed.
Push until someone pushes back?
Then you push back.
Okay. So social media, how does that play into this, again, this cause-related life and the initiatives there? Is it a great tool, and if so, how?
Social media, I believe, has changed the world. I mean, that on top of the internet, obviously, which changed in huge ways. But now, everybody is connected simultaneously, and it is an overwhelming notion. We went back to the runway this season, and the reason we did is because of social media. Because the runway, you do a fashion show and you crowd these rooms with inhuman conditions, and these editors fight for front row seats, and they take what you have left, and 300, 400 people sit there for 20 minutes, and then it's done. But today, because first of all of global programming and the internet, there is a global marketplace for the content that's created in those 20 minutes, and it's viewed everywhere in the world. So you have this huge global audience for that product. And then today, so then you say, I know, but that's good and well, but nobody's wearing these clothes of mine or these shoes of mine because we don't even have stores or we don't have distribution in those places. But today people are consuming product differently. It's not about buying them in the stores. It's about pinning it and posting it and tweeting it and retweeting it and putting up on Facebook and Pinterest, and everybody today is their own brand, and they access artists and resources out there to help define themselves, and they define themselves on their social platforms. And it's fascinating today. So I love it. My kids get pissed off at me because they wonder as to the appropriateness of my Instagrams and my tweets. But I used to only have 2 seasons a year where I could impose my thoughts upon unsuspecting audiences. Now, today you can do it all the time. Yeah. And people can just shut you off if they want to. Yeah. They can, but I'm used to that.
So do you follow all the reaction, and do you pay attention to everything?
I pay attention to what I feel I should. Nothing that's going to depress me. So, but there's so much that there's so much accessible, and it's truly unfathomable. So I think it changes the world.
So give me an example of an initiative that grew beyond what you thought it would. Something that you've been involved in that you pushed and then has sort of taken on a life of its own.
One thing I want to tell you about. So business and commerce, art and commerce, business and philanthropy. So we had a business dilemma. I don't know if some of you guys probably know the story, I don't know. But in the late 80s, we had opened up our first store on Columbus Avenue in New York. And then I had one in San Francisco. And up until that point, we were selling department stores and specialty stores. Now, the problem was, all of a sudden, February comes along, and you have already converted the stores to spring merchandise because you've sold all your fall merchandise on sale now, either in December or January. Then we didn't go on sale until December. So December and January, you sell through all your fall. And you have all these new fresh spring shoes in February. February is the coldest month of the year, and there's a foot of snow on the ground. And you've got all these summer shoes in the store, and there's no impulse, there's no rationale for the consumer to commit herself that early on. So we came up with this idea, and there was this constituent group in New York that were totally ignored by everybody. They were called the homeless population. The politicians ignored them because they didn't vote. The merchants ignored them because they didn't have any disposable income. And it started to really grow in New York in the 80s during the Bush-Reagan years, when a lot of the social safety net was kind of pulled out, and you saw the homeless population starting to grow. And there was, and it was also, by the way, in the next 10 years, the greatest appreciation in growth in this country, but also in homelessness. So we did a campaign, took a picture of a homeless person, and we said, unfortunately, too many people would love to be in your shoes. Then we went on to say, bring in a pair of shoes you no longer wear for someone that could, and we'll give you a discount on a new pair. So now, we dealt with the business dilemma because we couldn't go on sale because Bloomingdale's had the same shoes, and Saks had the same shoes, and Macy's had the same shoes. So, but because we weren't discounting, we were expending goodwill in the community, and that was acceptable. And we were providing as good a service to New Yorkers. Probably their single greatest, most valuable commodity is closet space. So we were motivating them to empty their closets, and they would bring in shoes that they didn't wear, and we'd give them a discount on another pair. So this was this thing we started, and over 20 years, we collected several million pair of shoes in all of our stores, and we have kept this going, and we extended it to other articles of clothing and accessories. And it became a shoe drive, and it became kind of a generic term.
So you didn't think in the beginning that was really going to take on that life?
It took on a life of its own, and it initially was a business dilemma that solved a real need in the community, and at the end of the day, every constituent group won, and the business benefited from it, and so did the community.
So we're going to play a little game of fill in the blank. You ready?
Can I call my lawyer?
Sure.
Okay, ready.
The thing you're most frustrated by right now? Don't
You
ponder
didn't tell me
it
we were
too
gonna play
long.
this
Just
game.
go.
I want to have the greatest, coolest shoes in the world again, and it's not happening overnight.
Honest. The thing you're the most proudest of?
My daughters. My greatest accessories.
Very nice. And before we turn it over to the audience, if you would fill in the blank, I won't rest until... You may have already answered this, by the way.
I mean, we're committed to find a cure for AIDS, and we're so close.
Right.
So, and either that or a cure to that hole in everyone's wardrobe, whichever comes first.
Very good. Okay. So we're going to open it up to the audience. Can we just lift the lights a little bit? And we have a question I can see right over here.
So, Kenneth, I got a quick question. Everyone knows you're sort of the master of the pun. When do you think of these? Are you sort of laying in bed at night and come up with these? Are they all the ones that come out of the brand? Are they from you? Or is there a team that works on it? And how much editing goes into it?
It's a compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? But I make the case that it's not that different than manipulating the English language is it's not that different than what we do with footwear. Because you look at what people are wearing and say, now how do I give them what they want but not how they expect it? How can I manipulate just a little bit so they understand what I've done? You know, in fashion, it's better to be second than it is sometimes to be, it's better to be a little late than it is to be too early. Because at least when you're too early, nobody knows where you're coming from. But if you're a little late, they know at least what your intentions were. And I lie up at night and I'm destroying the English language consistently. No, sometimes it's quick.
Neil, it just happened before the intro on stage. He had a bad pun that you didn't use.
Sometimes it takes a little while, but they say it's the most unintelligent form of humor or something, but I think to the ability to engage people and hold people, because is what the challenge is. In advertising, if you take one of 300 pages in Vogue magazine, you're paying the same amount as the other 300 advertisers. But to the degree you get, the share of the publication is 1 in 300, but the share of mind can be much more than that. If you can get them thinking about that message after they close the book, then you've got more than your money's worth. And the same thing with outside advertising or otherwise. So how do I kind of keep my message with you? And I have found this path has been successful for us.
Other questions? Yes, here.
Kenneth, now that you're private, besides the not having to do the monthly comps, the quarterly reports, the annual reports, saving $20 million or whatever on your annual and all the SEC requirements, what's different in the way you're running your business?
Everything. You know what it is, Gilbert? And you don't even realize it until you're not public anymore. Almost every way you look at the business, the way you look at the balance sheet, the income statement, is different as a private company. As a public company, for example, advertising is an expense. As a private company, it's an investment. Inventory as a public company is your greatest liability, regardless of the inventory. If it's the right inventory, it's your greatest asset as a private company. So just you look at the ability to think outside of that quarter and outside of the projected, anticipated earnings per share is huge. So, I mean, it's a big culture adjustment, and I'm not saying it happens overnight. And you want to keep the disciplines that you learn as having been public. But the ability to provide for a place that you want to be a few years down the road is you just can't do it as a public company. It's just very hard. You have to take a step back often to take, several forward. And the public has little appetite for it.
Do you like being underneath the radar?
I love being underneath the radar. I love being underneath the radar. So, and I'm a little more public than I wish I were anyway by nature of the other things that I do. So, especially professionally. And I'm very focused on kind of recreating the business model, and what we want to do, you can't do as a public company.
Any other questions? Is there anything, we have another?
Questions back.
Where? Yep.
Kenneth, with all the innovative things you've done in regards to marketing and PR, what do you think that an industry like ours can do for 210 that is a great organization, but yet a lot of the new people coming into it aren't even aware of it? People outside of the industry aren't aware of it, and you have this great organization, but yet the awareness is pretty low. In your mind, what were some of the things we could do to maybe enhance that?
It's a big deal that it exists, and I think you just have to let people know it's there. Taking an industry that takes care of those least able to provide for themselves is a big deal, and it's one I think that everybody should be proud of. Will they ever need to and choose to and avail themselves of it? Hopefully not, but the fact that it's there is a big deal. So how do you talk about it? I think there is, especially today with social media, there's a lot of ways, very efficient ways today, very targeted and efficient ways today to talk to your audience and talk to funders as well as beneficiaries. I mean, that's just off the top of my head, but I think today you can do, the world today, again, I'm obsessed with social media because you can go to your customer. It's a very efficient, effective way to find them and not wait for them to come to you. And that's the big difference.
Great. Thank you, Kenneth Cole, so much. Fantastic.